everybody, today we're doing the January wrap-up. Hey everybody, my name is Sophie the Bookish Floor. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm gonna talk about January books, all the books I read in January. So first, let's talk about goals. I know that this year a lot of people are not doing goals, and that's completely fine. I do like to set up goals just to have like a mark or like a deadline or like an idea, because if I don't do that, then I don't do anything. I need to have like a clear kind of, again, like I said, like a deadline or a marker, something to tell me that I'm moving somewhere and not just aimlessly wandering around. Like do that with like everything. I need to know like when I'm gonna do something, at what time. I need a set of activities I'm gonna do for the day, even if it's just something simple. Otherwise I just get all like mumbled and jumbled and all that. So I do have a goal of 120 books a year. That means, well, this year that means 10 books a month. Now if I don't reach that goal, I'm completely fine, but I do need something like to look forward to or to work towards. So I selected, in this case for January, I selected 6 books that I wanted to read for my January TBR, and then I left 4 books for mood read, whatever I wanted to read. For January, what I did is I selected 2 authors from diverse backgrounds. I selected Sabbath here with All My Rage, and I selected Talia Hibbert with Get a Life, Chloe Brown. And then I selected also, although it's not, it was part of like a mood read, but it's also a diverse writer, is Silvia Moreno Garcia with The Seven Veils of Salome. And I read that one in English, not in Spanish, because I did select a book in Spanish, Jamás el Fuego Nunca, de Daniela Etif. I also selected This Hollow Vows from Lexi Ryan. That was a complete mood read. And I selected a nonfiction, which I do want to read each month. That's another goal that I set up. I want to read a nonfiction, a book in Spanish. I wanted to read 2 diverse authors, a mood read, and I always forget one of them. If you go to my Instagram and you see my TBR, you're gonna see them right there. I don't know why every time I try to talk about this, because this is brand new, something that I'm doing this year, I always forget one of the categories. But anyways, I picked also for my nonfiction, I picked The Mountain Is You, and that is by Brianna Weist. So was I able to read those 6 books plus my 4 mood reads? No. I ended up reading 7 books in January, which is pretty good. Only 3 behind, and that's completely fine. There are months where I read a lot of books, and there are months when I'm not gonna reach my goals for whatever reason. In January, I was sick for like about 10 days, that cold that everybody got in December. So I spent about 10 days in bed doing nothing but watching Gilmore Girls. And yeah, I didn't get a chance to read anything. So I started my month with my nonfiction, because I wanted New Year, same me, but upgraded. And I wanted to start with The Mountain Is You, which was a rec from Kalila Denson, who is an awesome booktuber. You should go follow her. And she really recommended that book. And when I started listening to that one, I felt called out. I felt like she knew my soul. And then I continued to listen to it. Some of it applied to me, some of it didn't, but I found that it's not necessarily a self-help book where it tells you like, okay, today you're gonna do this, today you're gonna wake up and you're gonna, I hate those self-help books that tell you you're gonna wake up, you're gonna drink water, you're gonna exercise, and tomorrow everything's gonna be great, you're gonna be a new person. No, this one really emphasizes on how you look at life. And because I've already been on that journey, some of the lessons I have already been applying for a long time. Those lessons have actually been present in your life, actually kind of having your feet in the ground, really noticing what is real, because the voices in your head that make you anxious or nervous or all of that really try to tell you that everything is more chaotic and bigger and scarier than it actually is. So I really try to ground myself in reality, being present in what is real, and what is important, and just taking it as it is, and what are you gonna do for yourself. So I like that a lot. I think that is a book that you can listen to it multiple times, and every time it's probably gonna you're gonna go back to it depending on what you're dealing with, and you're gonna hear a new lesson that you can apply. So that one, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and The Prophet by Khalil Gibran are books that I kind of am going back whenever I'm having difficult time in certain lessons. There, I can always go back and be like, okay, it's time to ground myself again and continue and move forward. So that was a great book. I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I read was a complete surprise. So I read this Hello Vows. I had seen, I believe, Carrie Cakes from Carrie Can Read, reading it or recommending it, like, or just talking about it, like probably like a few years ago or a couple of years ago. When I started following a lot of booktubers, I would write like a list of everything that they would recommend. It sounded fun. And then in a shopping trip at a library store, I saw it and I grabbed it, but I didn't know what it was. Like, it's been a long time since I heard Carrie talked about it. I just knew she talked about it, and I just grabbed it and put it in my bag, bought it, obviously, brought it home, and I love the cover. So I decided, you know what, this is the month that I'm gonna read it. Turns out it's Faye. I've never read anything Faye. I was not into that whole Faye thing. I'm not into Akatar. I'm not into the Crow Prince and all those things. Emily Wilde, none of that. I'm not in that world. Fantasy for me is Lord of the Rings, like that type of world. So for me, the closest thing for to Faye is like Arwen and Legolas and all that. So yeah, I'm kind of far away from that. And obviously, when I started listening to this Halloween, I'm like, what is this? And then it turned a little bit smutty, and I'm like, what is this? But the intrigue, I like that. I like the intrigue. I like the politics. I like all that, and I'm like, okay, I'm liking that part, so I'm gonna continue to listen to it. And then that twist at the end, I was like, what is going on? And it totally got me like, I didn't even realize that I was so immersed in it that made me like say out loud, like, what is going on? And when a book, I don't react a lot. Even when I like books, I don't react a lot. Or movies or TV shows. Like, I always get made fun of because people around me ask me, don't you think that's funny? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why aren't you laughing? And I'm like, I'm laughing on the inside. Like, I don't react physically to things, even if I love them or I think they're funny or anything like that. I react physically when I think something is not good, and you can tell it on my face. But when something is like great or good, I don't necessarily react physically unless it's like I think it's really great, like amazing. Uh so when I react physically, like, I know it hit like a nerve. So I'm like, oh, okay, I like this book. So I gave it 5 stars, and immediately I had to listen to the second one. And the second one is This Twisted Bonds, and it's the same thing. It's about a girl who is living her life. She goes to the Fey realm because in the first one, they took her sister, or her stepmom stole her sister, something like that, because they're impoverished. And she goes to get her, but she finds out that she kind of has like lineage with Faye, and she has to go to a ball, and it's kind of like The Bachelor type thing, where she has to like impress like a prince in order to marry him, but really she's trying to find her sister and find weapons in order to betray said prince. And then her friend from uh from back home turns out to be one of them too, like a fae. So yeah, it's a whole thing, and then there's a whole love triangle. Definitely, I think, I'm not sure, this was in the young adult, which young adult is like high school kids. And I know young adult is not like an age range, it's more like a marketing tool. Like, it's not a genre and it's not an age range, it's a marketing tool the publishers use. But the content of the book, I do believe, is more like new adult or adult, because it is very smutty. um and yeah, I'm glad a kid didn't pick it up, I'm glad I picked it up. And yeah, I would recommend it to adults, I wouldn't recommend it to kids, but I really like them. Old enough to read them, way past the age. So I really like them. Again, a lot of political intrigue, especially in the second one, if you're more into that. Still pretty smutty, but more of the political intrigue. So I gave the second one 4 stars. They're probably more like a 4 or 3 star kind of series, but because I'm not into that world of like Fae and all that, it was my first time reading that, and it was a lot of fun. Honestly, I gave it like a 5 star and a 4 star. The fact that I wanted to read the second one immediately, I mean, I had a lot of fun with it, and yeah, it was just a good time. The next book that I read is actually the selection for the Bookish Garden book club. If you guys are interested, you can join. We're over at Fable, but really, I just announced it either here or on Instagram. We select the book, and everybody reads at their own. It's just kind of to have companionship, for us to read together. And then we just finished the book. The deadline was February 3rd, and that was The Seven Bells of Salome. And yeah, so come join us for the next one, for the next book, which is gonna be the February pick. I'll announce it next week. But yeah, that was selection, and I really liked this one. If you guys liked The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I would recommend you pick up this one also. If you didn't like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and you have issues with the representation, which I didn't like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I was incredibly angry at the representation, and also very frustrated with the character. I don't mind this like unlikable characters. There are plenty of unlikable characters that you still read about, like President Snow. I still read the whole book and I liked it, but I really didn't like that book, and I really didn't like that representation, and there were a couple of things that make me really angry. And this one did it. If you like the whole scene, the whole Hollywood scene from the golden age of Hollywood, an actual character who is Mexican, who is defending her heritage, who is proud of her heritage, who is showing who she is. This is the one for you. So The Seven Bells of Salome, it tells the story in 3 points of view. So we have Vera, who is an actress, a young actress in Hollywood, who has been selected to play the main role in The Seven Veils of Salome. This is a movie. And she is kind of thrusted into the spotlight by her kind of manager. She really wants to be a musician. She's a gifted musician. She writes music. She plays the piano, and she really wants to succeed in that. But she's very beautiful, she's talented, and her mom wants her to be like a Hollywood star. So she she is working on this movie. It is her kind of breakthrough role. She meets a young man who is also a musician, and they start a romance. The other point of view is actually Salome, which is the character that Vera is playing. And we see the whole story of Salome, which is very interesting. Also, how she has to play like she is not very political, not very powerful, but really she is, and how she is also in love with someone who she's not supposed to be in love with, and what does that entail? What does that entail for her, and the empire that she is belongs to, and all that. And then the third point of view is from a girl who is someone who wants to break into the business. Her name is Nancy, and she hasn't been able to. She lives a very kind of unfortunate life. She has tried everything, like the typical Hollywood story that you hear, where she goes there with big dreams. She poses for photographers, they take advantage. She just doesn't have what it takes, and she's really resentful of that. She has been again taken advantage, and she's resentful also of that. She gets involved with the wrong crowd, but also she is not a necessarily good person, and she also takes advantage of the people around her to do her bidding. When she resents people around her, like Vera, and yeah, and she is like very racist. And there's a scene there where if I was Vera, I would have done the same thing. And yeah, I this book is very truthful in the representation, and there's Vera, because they're so close to the border. They although it's horrible, but they do color some horrible names, and they do use some insults that are very familiar to people that live at the border like me. Things that we have heard before, slurs, and obviously things that you have heard from people from Tijuana. And when I was reading that on the page, I was like, what? But then I remember, okay, Silvia Moreno Garcia is from Baja. She knows what we've been called forever. She knows the stereotypes. So this is coming from someone who is Mexican Canadian, who knows this, and who is treating this with utmost respect, and still being truthful of the way people perceive people from Mexico, and how those people like Nancy would behave towards people like Vera. And yeah, like when I got mad at the book, it was for the right reasons, not like Evelyn Hugo, who I was so mad because she was not representing anyone correctly. So yeah, if you like, again, all that like drama from old Hollywood but want the correct representation, definitely The Seven Veils of Salome is the one that you should be reading. Okay, and I gave that one 4 stars. The next book that I read is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. Chloe is, I think she suffers from fibromyalgia, and she has a hard time doing things without being in any pain. So she has a list of things that she wants to accomplish. And she asks her neighbor, who she kind of thinks is really hot, if he can help her out. And he actually is an artist who is looking to build a website to promote his art, and she's an expert at that. So they decide to kind of combine forces. She'll build his website, he'll help her kind of go through this list of things that she wants to accomplish, from riding on a motorcycle to getting like super tipsy at a bar, and being safe obviously with him, and things like that. And obviously they kind of come together and all that, but they come together, and again, it's very smutty and a little bit graphic. I think that, again, because I see a lot of younger people reading certain things, definitely not banning, and definitely I think everybody should be able to read anything, and there are worse things out there, and there are important things that people should be reading. But I think people should be a bit more informed, and I think it's the publisher should be a little bit more responsible, whether it's on the blurb. It can even be like, if you guys can create like little not emojis, but little graphic things that you just have that little stamp on the book and in the back, and everybody knows what that is. Like when a parent picks up a book or a kid picks up a book, they can know, okay, this is my thing, that's okay, or I am gonna allow my kid to read this right now or maybe later. But when no one is even knows what they're getting into, I don't like that. I don't like it when people are surprised in the middle of the book, especially for someone younger, like being into a series and having to cut it midway because something heavy is happening that maybe they're not comfortable with, because you don't know either. And books are not like that cheap, so I don't want them spending their money on books that they're gonna regret because they don't know exactly what the content is. And this is just smutty, but there are other books that have like very traumatic topics. They have very trigger warning topics in there that I think people should know about. So again, not banning, allowing everybody to read whatever they feel comfortable with, but I feel like there should be something. And if there are icons in the back, we can all automatically recognize that, okay, this is Marie, or this is a content warning for this type of content, and this is for this type of content. That would be awesome. So any graphic designers or anyone out there who wants to promote that, send it to publishers, hire your own graphic designers to do this. Like, why can we all agree on that? And people can decide whether they want to buy it or not, or read it now or later. Anyway, that is my spiel on that. I give it 3 stars because the story isn't like super original. Is again enemies to lovers, but not really enemies. The romance is okay. You have that third act conflict, breakup, all that, like not incredibly original. Again, it's just a good time. It's a fun book. Like if you want to read a romance that is a little bit smutty, not a lot of stakes, everything's gonna be fine, this is a great book, and a great representation. That's also what I think there's a great representation for disability and for but different types of body types. So yeah, I really like that, those types of things. So the next book is, okay, the next book that I was supposed to read was Jamás el Fuego Nunca, but because I have gotten sick between the Seven Bells of Salome and Chloe Brown, I didn't have a lot of time, and I only had the other book as an ebook, and I knew I wasn't gonna be able to read it physically, so I needed like a quick audio book. So I decided to change my book in Spanish to a book by Claudia Piñero, which is a Argentinian author who is incredibly popular. And Claudia Piñero is someone that I've heard amazing things about from booktubers who read her translated work. So not from booktubers that read in Spanish. I haven't heard anyone mention her, but definitely booktubers that are reading her translated work. So I decided, okay, maybe she is great. And she also writes like mystery books, so that was interesting because I don't think I've read a lot of mystery from Latin American authors. So I said, okay, I love mystery, so let's go ahead and give her a chance. This is Las Grietas de Jara de Claudia Piñero, and I did like it. I like the story because I do like the mystery. This is a murder mystery. At the beginning, you already know that there was a murder. There's a girl who comes into an architect's office looking for a man who disappeared, and then 3 of the architects in the office kind of look around, and immediately you know that they did something. And one of them, the main character, says, last time someone mentioned him was the day that we were covering his blood. So we know that all 3 of them are involved in some way, but we don't know who did what exactly. So that's how the story starts. Again, I like trying to solve what happened. More than anything, the story is about that main character trying to figure out, it's not us, it's us trying to figure out what happened, but him trying to figure out himself. How did he get to that place in life? What happened to his life? What were his dreams, his what did he wanted to accomplish in his life, and where did he end up, and what is he gonna do now. So I like that whole story, that whole parallel. I like that. The language I didn't like, and by the language I mean the writing style. The writing style I didn't like, and also the way, obviously, even though we speak Spanish, both Mexicans and Argentinians, we don't speak the same Spanish. We have different words that we use. We have the different tones, different things. So the writing style is very different. For me, it sounds very exaggerated. Like, it doesn't sound like that's the way people would talk. But I'm not from Argentina, so I really don't know if that's really how people would talk in Argentina. Like, I know that we wouldn't talk that way here, so I decided not to be like so harsh in that aspect, because I don't know their particular language use. I know that the general language because it's Spanish, but I don't know all the particularities of how they use their language, obviously, because I've never been. I don't know anyone. Well, I know a couple of people from there, but they live here, so it's not the same. um so yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how the language flows, and I need to, I think, train my ear more and be more familiar with the language. So that's why I'm trying to read more. But I definitely like the story. So I gave it a 3 stars. The other 2 stars is definitely me, it's not necessarily her. So I think I'm gonna listen more. I think also what I'm wanna do an experiment of listening to the translated version and see if I like it more, to see if there's something there going on, if there's a disconnect with me when it comes to the language, or if it's the story. Because I did like the story, like I said before. So yeah, anyways, that was Las Grietas de Jara. Okay. And the last book that I read was, I was trying to get one more, not to I again, the last one that I had on my um list was All My Rage, but All My Rage is about 16 hours long, and I knew, I think it was my last day of January 31st. I knew I wasn't gonna be able to read it, because I can't read, like, or I can listen for 16 hours straight. I have other stuff that I need to do. So I picked a shorter book, and I picked A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. There are around, and I found it very interesting. A lot of people, again, that I've heard talk about A Room of One's Own, talk about how it's about women writing, which it is. It's about that, what women need to write, and how Virginia Woolf is talking a lot about her particular stand in life, which is very privileged, and that is true. And especially at the beginning, she had a very particular way of writing, which is an essay form, but also very spontaneous. I know that's not the proper word, but she's kind of just going with her thoughts, and if her thoughts go somewhere else, she continues, and then she comes back to the idea. So it turns out she's spending like the weekend or the week with a family, and she's talking about like the dinner and what they're eating, and she's incredibly critical of the food they're having. And I think this is during like war times, where people don't have, like, they have to ration and all that. But she's incredibly critical, and I'm like, girl, like, the privilege is showing. And at the beginning, I was a little like taken aback from that, but then she starts talking about, but she also like kind of clicks into that, and she recognizes that. So it's very like uh I don't know. It's a weird experience to listen to it, because I was listening to it. So she does clock into what she's saying, and then she continues, and she's talking about what the Brontes needed in order to write, and what Jane Austen needed in order to write. So she's comparing a lot, like the Brontes, Jane Austen, herself, and other writers. But what I found most interesting, that people are not necessarily talking about when they discuss this book, is the way she talks about or how she tells us how other men are perceiving her writing, and how men that are writing articles in magazines and on the newspaper perceive women writers, and how they're saying like whether they should or shouldn't write, like what kind of writers they should be, or what kind of limitations they have. And obviously it's incredibly sexist, all the things that they have to say. And I think that's the most interesting part of this, whether obviously she is talking about whether women are allowed to write or not, or whether they need a room of their, that's the whole point. Do they need a room of their own? And I guess it's not necessarily a physical room that they need the space, they need the opportunity to write, to be published, to present their work. I think that's what she's talking about. uh and she presents it in that way when men are talking about no, they should have this limit and they should just do this. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. And more interesting is that it hasn't changed a whole lot. Then most books aren't written by men, but why is it that most books that are promoted are by men? Most people that are talked about are by men writers, male writers. And um when who is writing, reading, promoting books mostly are women and not men. Even on booktube you see there's mostly women. So it's a weird concept there. Just something to think about. Very important topic to think about for the last book of the month. And obviously I gave it 5 stars because it gave me like a lot to think about. Those were all the books that I read in January. I think this was a long one. So let me know what you read in January. If you have read any of these books, let me know in the comment. If not, if you read something else, let us know so we can add it up to our next TBRs. Also on the description, remember that you have all the ways that you can support my channel. I would really appreciate it. You have also a new place where you can find books. If you are looking for an alternative place where you can find books, they ship all around the world. That is my affiliate link, just in case you are looking for an alternative. I know that a lot of people are looking for that. And also all the ways you can follow me on my social media. Maybe you can join us for the Bookish Garden Book Club, for the reading that we're gonna do in February. Remember to keep reading and keep blooming, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!